Welcome, everybody, to another great CEO podcast. My name is Jim Schleckser. I am your host, and I am with Mike Zani from Predictive Index. Welcome, Mike.
Jim, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, I got to say, probably everybody listening has heard of Predictive Index, but I'm not sure we all know exactly what you do. So would you mind just explaining kind of what's under the covers inside Predictive Index?
We're a 68-year-old company,
Wow.
based in science. And when my business partner and I sort of refounded it, we bought it 8 years ago. Back then, it was just a behavioral assessment, which helped people pre and post hire. But we've turned it into what we call a talent optimization platform, which is really helping companies with their overall talent strategy. It includes hire, post hire, team dynamics, engagement, performance.
Got it. Is it all sort of based on that core science that was developed by the founder?
Everything is mapped to behavioral science. So as an example, if you were a manager of 10 people and your engagement scores said something XYZ, what we'll do is we'll map you against your engagement scores. Say, hey, people with your behavioral profiles often struggle with this. You're
Right.
actually doing better than average for someone of your behavioral preferences. Or vice versa, it's saying you should be doing better than this given your behavioral preferences and you're not. And so we often use the behavioral science mapped to a lot of what we do because it really helps us personalize interventions.
Got it. Interesting. So, I mean, there's got to be, 50 assessments and that I could, DISC and the Gallup one and your Strength Finder and the one they use for the football. I mean, so what's superior about what you guys do? Why do people pick PI versus any of the other ones that they might possibly pick?
The dirty little secret is the assessment. Most of them are good.
Okay.
There are some schlocky stuff, and there's stuff you really shouldn't use for hiring because it's not up to that caliber. That when I see a company using a behavioral assessment that's not ours and they're using it responsibly, it's gone cultural. I'm like, great, you're doing the right thing. I think when you're contemplating starting this process, use something, find someone who has, really strong science, high degree of validity, can be used pre and post hire, and has the support systems that you need. We're one of the companies that does all of that. We're not the only company like competitive spaces.
Right.
You've got good competitors that keep you on their toes.
Well, that's like the soup is good food answer. I like that. All soup is good, but you might want to pick mine, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what, in this model, what percentage of the revenue is recurring? We're all about quality of business model is recurring revenue. What percentage of your revenue repeats I show up January 1st, that I got this percentage of my revenue locked, or do I have to go get?
That's right. Well, on a unit basis, it's around 86%. On a net dollar basis, it's high 90s. And the net dollar basis being people expand and your bigger accounts typically stay longer than your VSB, as we call them, or very small business, sort of under 50, a little more volatile, churn out a lot.
Sense. But once they design it into their system, they're kind of locked in. This is the way they do things.
Quite often, I think the biggest risk factor that we see is when you're single threaded, there might be, call it a 75-person company, has one person in HR, and that person leaves. And they're like, wow, Bob left. It was Bob's tool. No one else knows how to use it. That's one. And another is when companies are purchased or the CEO changes out, especially with smaller companies where maybe it's a private equity firm, they're looking to cut costs, or maybe the new CEO is like, I don't believe in that stuff, and they get rid of it. So those are really the two biggest things that we see that cause us to churn.
Got it. Interesting. So, every business has a point of constraint, sort of one thing that limits the upside or the profitability or the growth rate of the business. And, if we could change it, we would make it a materially better business. So what would be the one thing you would change about your business? Like if you had a little magic wand, bam, what is it? What would you change?
Our biggest competitor is change. Most people, I'm not afraid of any of my competitors. The competitor I'm afraid of is resistance to change. So the people they shop you. They're like, I love it. I just don't think I can absorb it right now. And when I think about that, it gets down to ease of use.
Yeah.
If it was easier to adopt that all products, but you're asking people to change the way they think about people. We're asking people to change the way they hire and interview. You're asking people to change the way they manage. It's a difficult task when you want people to change the way they do stuff.
Interesting. Now, do you help them with that change management process?
We do. We sell and service through an independent network of certified partners. So we have 1,000 certified partners out there. They try and understand the companies that they're working with, and not only are sharing best practices, but really understanding their specific stuff. And when they understand their stuff, a lot of that stuff is change. They go, how do we implement this in your company? Now, if you're Samsung and you're hiring 25,000 people a day at a job fair, that's a different part of the process than if you're a 100-person, old school company that wants to meet you first before, you might apply psychometric tools, broadly speaking.
Got it. Okay. So, well, that makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of software type or like this, they use partners to do the implementation, deployment, change management, because you don't really want to have that in your business because it's an as needed offer, I think.
I think, today, you might have a different choice than 68 years ago when our founder started things. He's like, I don't like traveling, so I'm going to actually license my software out to people, or my system. It wasn't even software back then. I'm going to license the science and system out to people because I don't like traveling. So we sort of earned a distribution channel in that respect.
I can totally respect that. So moving over to yourself, how many hours a week you working nowadays?
I think I have pretty healthy work-life balance. I'm probably averaging, slightly over 45. I still have a lot of hobbies, and I have 2 teenage boys who keep me pretty busy.
Nice.
So, I think I try and model that for the whole company, that if I can't take a break, or if I'm sending emails all weekend, which I did earlier in my career, that it creates a pulse that they can't feel comfortable taking time for themselves.
Got it. Interesting. So, as you grow, we have to shed responsibilities and delegate so that we move up and people move up with us. Can you name one major responsibility you've delegated in the last 6 months?
One major responsibility that I've delegated in the last 6 months. So my business partner just went, he just sort of, not, I wouldn't call it retired, but he went on an extended sabbatical.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it for all the right reasons. And I just absorbed all of his direct reports and about 50% of the organization. Now, fortunately, we had a strong enough management team that I could double my responsibility. This is the opposite of getting a COO. This was like shedding a COO. And when you had to do that, it's like, if I'm doubling my scope, doubling my direct reports, I halved my one-on-one meetings through Cadence.
Yep.
And I did an entire meeting assessment of the whole organization of like, our meeting load, just in my analysis, is way too high. Now, part of it was my business partner loved meetings, so was sparking that. So I was bringing my style, but just completely reducing the load of meetings. And I brought the meeting average down a third across the organization. And people are happier. Like, thank you. We've got better meetings, fewer meetings, and better notes coming out of meetings. Because some people go to these things because it's a CYA. They're like, I don't want to miss what's going on, even though I'm not actively participating. So I went on a meeting witch hunt, which actually saved a ton of time, and enabled me to absorb that sort of scope load.
That I may steal that phrase, a meeting witch hunt. I like that a lot, actually.
Well, I actually built a survey, which I think is going to become a future product, where we had a whole rubric around scoring meetings. And knowing, like, we asked people, what is the purpose of this meeting? And like, meetings without purpose, you're like, what are we doing? And it was really exciting to do. We'll see if it comes out. If it comes out, it's going to be maybe 18 months before you can press a button and say, hey, here's my meeting witch hunt button.
Yeah, I love it. So what would you say, or if somebody talked about your leadership style, or you were to talk about your leadership style, what would be the one or two things that you'd say these are central to how I lead an organization?
Yeah, I mean, not surprisingly. So my business partner and I started as search funders, where we buy a used company with other people's money. So we're on our fourth organization, and I gravitated. Our first company, we were just happy to buy any company.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. But I was really a people first leader. I didn't realize it at the time when I started, but that got me to go to a company that does people first leadership work. So this is really my dream job. I love the fact that not only do I get to build a world-class team at the Predictive Index, but I help our 10,000 clients do the same. Because I really feel that if not every leader leads like that, but I lead for, I'm going to get the people to do the hard work. I'm just the orchestra conductor.
I love it. Last question. What do you do for fun?
My son and I, my youngest, are electrifying a 1977 VW bus.
Oh, cool.
We are putting we're putting Tesla battery modules in it and an electric motor, and I am so out over my skis. It's hard to explain, but we're having the greatest time doing it.
Oh, that's fun. Are you going to take the tour of the United States with a mattress in the back next?
Well, it doesn't really have good range, so I think we'll take a tour of the city.
There you go. Awesome. Well, hey, Mike, this was tremendous. I really appreciate your time. Great interview, and I wish you guys great luck going forward.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the invite. Take care.
Thank you.